Hey friends, it's Laura, and thank you so much for joining me. I just thought I would show you a quick little tutorial on how to ice dye your cross stitch fabric. It's so cool, you all. You've got to see how to do this. So, supplies you're going to need. You want some cross stitch cloth of your choice. Obviously, Aida is going to be dyeing a little bit different than like a linen. I tried Lugana for this tutorial, so somewhere with an even weave, but feel free to use whatever you have on hand. And obviously you want a light color. You don't have to go with white though, so think outside the box a little bit and decide, what do I want to dye? So in addition to your cloth, you're going to need ice, obviously, some powdered fabric dye, a rack of some sort, and then you're also going to want like a metal pan to put underneath that. So I used a paint tray, but you could use like a 9x13 cake pan, or one of those foil pans that you just get in pitch after, if you took them to a potluck or something like that would be great. So anything like that that's going to be big enough for your rack to fit inside or just barely overhang. You just want to make sure that you don't get dye everywhere. You want to make sure it's contained inside that metal container. All right, so let me show you what I did and let's get started. I'm going to dye the next Lugana cloth that I have for my Pinker and Pumpkin stitch by using an ice dyeing technique. So I have a paint pan and a rack. My Lugana cloth is wet. I just got it wet underneath some tap water. I have some ice here and I have some fabric dye. This fabric dye is made by RIT and it's the powdered dye, not the liquid. You can do this with the liquid dye. I haven't tried it. And I may try that in the future. But basically, so I have my fabric wet, and I am just going to cover this cloth with ice. And it might be a little difficult because I chose to do this on a slant, but it's all good, it's all good. All right, so I'm gonna put a bunch of ice on top of my cloth. And around it. Okay, so basically the deal with this is the more ice you have, the less white space you'll have. The less ice you have, the more white space you'll have. So like you can see, I piled this up and then I'm just going to sprinkle on the dye. And we're going to let it sit until the ice completely melts. And then we'll see what we have. All of the ice is melted. And so now we are going to rinse and spread our cloth and see what we have. I have hot water running and I'm just going to take my cloth and put it under the hot water to kind of rinse the excess dye out of there. Squeeze a little bit. I can already tell I didn't really get a lot of color in this time, so I may be doing this a second time. And now we're going to open and see. Now I used a green dye. It was a fabric dye, and it was kind of old. It looks like the yellow and blue separated a little bit, but I still have some really cool coloring in there, and I'm happy with it. Okay, so the first time I tried this, I didn't feel like I had enough color in my cloth when I got done. So I'm just going to do it again. And that's what's really cool about ice dyeing, is that if you don't like the results the first time, you can just like add more dye or add a different color or do whatever you want. So I'm just going to sprinkle on more of the green fabric dye and let the ice melt again and see where we're at. I think I probably put on, I don't know, maybe a tablespoon or so. Maybe not, probably like a teaspoon of dye the first time. So this time I'm just going to put on more. And then see where, see what we end up with. The cool thing is when you're first experimenting with this is that, you're going to be out the fabric dye, obviously, but use a small piece of cloth and just play with it and experiment with it and see what you can, design. It's really cool. And, it's not one of those things where you can't expect like perfection the first time. And you definitely can't expect something that you can completely control, because as the ice melts, the dye mixes with it and soaks down into your cloth. So You're not going to be able to say, oh, I want to splotch here, I don't want to splotch there. And that's part of the fun. It's like a natural way to dye your cloth, and giving up some of that control. So let's see how this turns out. So let's reveal our results. This was the second attempt at dyeing the same cloth with the ice and the green dye that I had. I have some really cool modeling and colors on this. Isn't that like so awesome? I'm so excited. This is what I'm going to be stitching my June Pinker Pumpkin salt box on. It's the Strawberry House. I'm so excited about this. It's so pretty. And it's still, it's still wet. I haven't pressed it yet. But look at that modeling that I got just from stacking ice on top of this cloth with some dye. How fun. I totally encourage you to play with this. You know, I wouldn't start with like a yard of your best fabric, right? I would start with a small piece and go from there and play with it. You know, maybe mix a couple different colors together, sprinkle here and there. I definitely want to try some liquid dye in the future too, not just the powdered dye. I know the liquid's a little bit of a different technique, but this is so cool, you guys. So fun. You've got to try it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick little tutorial on ice dyeing your cross-stitch cloth. If you like these types of things, make sure you like the video, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time. Happy stitching!